rise in COVID-19 cases is exceeding projections for the past few days. It's now the fourth straight day that new infections are above the 1,000 mark. Yesterday, the health department reported 1,323 new COVID cases. This is higher than the projected 1,250 by OCTA Research. The group is now seeing a rise in the positivity rates across the country, including Metro Manila, Cavite, Laguna and Rizal. We now talk to the OCTA Research Group. Joining us is Research Fellow Professor Guido. Good morning, Professor. Thank you once again for joining us. All right, let's talk more about the increase in the positivity rate that OCTA has noted over the past week. Basically the same as the previous week, but with provinces in the Calabarzon region getting the highest percentage. And as you heard, that's Cavite, Rizal, and Laguna. Professor, what do you make of these findings, and why is it that cases continue to rise in that area, specifically Region 4A?
Well, Ria, that's a good question. Cases are continuing to rise in the NCR and the surrounding regions, particularly in those regions. Of course, we think that the subvariant, the Omicron BA4 and BA5, are spreading in these areas, and in fact, genome sequencing has determined that the subvariants have been spotted in these areas in quantities, and that also includes Western Visayas, and that's why we're also seeing an increase in cases and positivity rate in Western Visayas, although it's not yet at a high positivity rate as compared to Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal, which you mentioned.
Right. Last week we spoke to DOH Calabarzon, and they said they have been experiencing this slow but steady increase in cases. And fortunately, the hospital utilization rate there remains low at about 10%. What are your projections in the region for the coming days? With this jump in the positivity rate, does that mean we're also going to see a jump in hospital admissions?
Yeah, we've been monitoring the hospitalizations closely, and we haven't actually seen a jump even in the NCR because an increase in cases in Calabarzon will also cause an increase in hospital, or possibly cause an increase in hospitalizations in the NCR, but we're not seeing it yet. We're seeing a slight increase in hospitalizations in the NCR. So we'll probably see a slight increase in hospitalizations in Calabarzon. But so far, it's coming out to be like a mini surge, just as we more or less projected a few weeks back. And this is the case also in Calabarzon. It's going to be a mini surge. It's not going to be the same level as what we had in January or last year. But yes, we're definitely keeping close watch on the numbers to see if it will change in trajectory.
All right, if we can zoom in a little to the National Capital Region, here we've got an 8.3% positivity rate. What scenarios are you seeing in the coming days?
Well, I think last week or so, we said that the increase was slowing down, but right now we have to backtrack on that. It has slowed down a bit. I mean, the growth rate, that's what I'm talking about, has slowed down a bit, but it's still increasing. There's still around a 50% growth rate. So we'll definitely see a further increase in cases for this week, maybe up to next week, and an increase in positivity rate. I'm not sure if it will exceed past 10%. We're projecting it won't be past 10% by next week, but it will still be rising to maybe around 9%. But we're hoping and projecting that the peak will happen soon in the NCR, maybe in 1 to 2 weeks, and then cases will slowly start to decrease. But again, these are still the projections that we have.
Okay, so how many cases a day are we looking at for the coming week, Professor?
Well, we're already seeing 1,300, so definitely by next week we will probably have around 2,000 cases per day nationwide.
Right, so you're saying this is kind of the peak. This week, maybe next week will be the peak. Can we say that after that we're going to see a downward trend?
Yes, those are the projections, Ria. I mean, we might see it rise up to 2,000 or even 3,000 cases per day, and then we're projecting that there will be a downward trend. We hope that it will stay with the projections and not increase further. I mean, even if there's a further increase not observed in the projections, uh, we don't think it will get to 5,000 cases per day nationwide.
Right, ideally. With the way things are going, Professor, do you think it's okay to stay under alert level 1?
Well, at this time, I think so, but this could definitely be reevaluated once we've hit the peak, which should be coming in a few weeks. And then, of course, there are other things to think about. People are thinking about the exit strategy, exiting out of the pandemic, if the state of emergency will no longer be renewed after September. So there are discussion points on how to move forward with the pandemic.
All right, thank you for that. As always, that was Professor Guido David from OCTA Research.